Welcome. Today is Wednesday, January 24th, 3/4 of the way through the beautiful solitude of January. So hopefully everybody out there is staying warm and getting through the midwinter blues of the etudes of solace and introspection. We're all indoors, inside our little cozy alcoves. So may this GreenFire, this golden eternity of this hour, bring the light up and bring warmth and warm the cockles of all of our hearts as we sing a heart song for the entire community here of Iowa City, as well as Johnson County and eastern Iowa, the upper Midwest, and Lake Michigan. Yay! And all those beautiful lakes up in Michigan, as well as Minnesota and all around the Great Lakes. So we're going to, I just returned from the monastery up at New Melleray. I'll tell a lot more story about this as this hour unfolds. A most unusual experience. I heartily recommend, if you find it in yourself and the Spirit moves you, to take a little journey up north on Highway 151 to New Melleray Abbey. To visit, to do a retreat, or to spend a night at the guest house for one night and one day, just that. I would recommend more than that, but one whole day is the eternity unfolded in one day. And the golden eternity of an hour with these New Melleray experience is just raise on the unspeakable, dear friends. Just simply raise on the unspeakable. So if you feel like a little bit of inertia and you're in an iceberg of the cold tundra of winter and permafrost is everywhere, you can melt those icebergs with a heart song and an affirmation to care for the least of these. That's always the journey, loving kindness and caring for the least of these. And make an inner journey, if not an exoteric journey, up to New Melleray. You can find New Melleray within your own stone winter palace, wherever you are. And follow your wandering star, dear friends. It's always important. If anything in this life that is certain that you have what it is that the divine brings in your birthright, in your birth, this wandering star. And it doesn't mean you have to physically travel. You can follow your wandering star without ever leaving home. But please, please, please follow your wandering star. Because when you follow your wandering star, it's not just for yourself. It's the Great Spirit infusing this divinized breath into you, and it's for everyone else, so they can see the true beauty of how truly beautiful you truly are. I met a monk who was like 90 years old at the time. He was a great soul, and his name was Brother Gus. And he had a soft way. He used to write poetry, especially about the stars. And that's what I liked about Brother Gus. They were like notes from Brother Gus. If you look up notes from Brother Gus, you'll probably find them on the internet. And notes from Brother Gus, New Melleray Abbey, Iowa. And Brother Gus always would say, he had this simple prayer. Being that he was of the Christian tradition, he would say, Lord Jesus Christ, I pray that you would bestow upon me the grace to see how beautiful I truly am. Now, that's an outrageous prayer. But if you take it and breathe it in slowly, and as Brother Gus would sweetly say, grant me the grace to know how beautiful I truly am. And that, dear friend, is following your wandering star. Grant me the grace to know how beautiful I truly am. And that's not for yourself. This is not an ego project. That is for everyone else to see your true beauty shining through. And when you follow your wandering star and others can see the true beauty of you shining through, that invites them to follow their wandering star so you can see the true beauty shining through them of who they truly are. Now that is the gift, each one reflecting a fractal or a facet of the jewel that we all, the crystal jeweled egg of liberation that we all are. Each one of us a facet or a fractal of that crystal jeweled egg of liberation. And whatever tradition you're in, or non-tradition, there is a place within where only the Anawim gather. And the Anawim are just the very few. And when folks of kindred like mind spirit gather, that is the wandering star forms a crystal jeweled egg of liberation, with each one of us being a facet of the, or a fractal of that crystal. And that is the light body that is within each one of us, but is also within the cosmic jeweled egg. You could call it physics, the Fibonacci spiral, or the Mandelbrot's fractals of the spiraled light of nature. And I went up to New Melleray on a dark winter night, really dark. It was 18th of January, only 5 or 6 days ago. I guess it was 6 days ago. And I went up with 6 men who were married men of Marion. So I called them, we were on a pilgrimage. And this indeed, when you set out to step out to go to a place like New Melleray, you are on a pilgrimage. So much like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, we were, all of us 6 married men of Marion, my traveling companions, were on a pilgrimage to New Melleray. And each one of us had a story to reveal and unfold and share with one another, because none of us had ever met before. We met at the St. Joseph parking lot in Marion, Iowa, St. Joseph's Church, and it was quite somber because we got there and the parking lot was full, and this was a fairly large parking lot. I would say a block wide and probably fairly good half to almost a block long. And almost every parking place in the parking lot was filled with cars. And come to find out, we were there right during a funeral ceremony for a 43-year-old man who died very suddenly, who was one of the really beloved souls or persons in the church parish. And so almost the entire church showed up for his funeral, which was most untimely, but he was highly reverenced and revered in the community. So we gathered in this filled-up parking lot. It was during a funeral, and we converged in and traversed afar out of there, up to a place in Monticello where we went to Daryl's diner and had a sit-down dinner at one of the best banquets, the best banquet foods, buffets. It's called Tummy Heaven, and it's richly deserving of its name. It is Tummy Heaven. So here's a big thank you to everyone at Daryl's Cafe in Monticello. You truly have earned your name, Tummy Heaven. We all enjoyed our meal there together. And then I told a little short story of the history of New Melleray, which I may cover here or I may not. It depends on how time goes within the golden eternity of this hour. And then we proceeded up to New Melleray and arrived up there, which was actually probably a 70-mile journey through the Iowa winter hinterlands with the snow drifts you could see, and the beautiful farmlands. And we arrived up at New Mallory Abbey about probably 2 o'clock, a little bit before that, and we're then given our assignments for our rooms at the guest house, which is the retreat house, the guest house. We're all guests at New Mallory. And to be a guest at New Mallory is really a great gift. Simply put, it's a great gift. And I'm not going to put any more words on that, just to know that it is a very cherished and heirloom place in our cultural history, which goes back to 1849. 169 years of continuous prayer at one place. The second oldest monastery in the entire North America, United States. And so it has a rich heritage, a lineage, but more than that, an heirloom quality about it that speaks deeply of our own cultural inheritance. And so I'm going to begin here with some simple affirmations of the time in which we live, at least in nature. And nature is a great teacher, because in January you get the blahs and your biorhythms are so slow that you want to go to sleep just like a bear. You can hardly stay awake half the time because the darkness and the biorhythms have slowed down. And it is a time to restore and repose. And this is something for, January, and this is simply a little thing called Always in the Stars. Right this daytime minute, the stars above are below as well, under your feet on the other side of the earth. Whatever you're doing right now, you're doing it in the midst of stars. Wherever you are on the pale blue dot of this beloved Aquaterra water planet Earth, whether you're in Australia, in Alaska, in Guatemala, stars surround and cradle you. Peer through the blue, squint at the clouds, nod your recognition to all that star-filled space behind them. Seeing no end, sense how precious small you are. Settle in, cherish the flesh that embodies your tiny piece of all that magnificence. Sometimes you'll forget where you truly spin. After all, the gauzy atmosphere of Earth has its own allure and learning. And birds bring you near to yourself in a fashion more intimate than stars. But when you remember the wider view and pump your perspective hard, you'll work the muscle that buffs you multidimensional and makes you a spirit athlete. Switching your view back and forth, out to, in, from stars to birds, builds a giant alignment. Stamina. You can do anything. Courage. You can go anywhere. Suppleness. You can talk with anyone at all. For you belong to the clan of creators, who whirl in the stars, aware we are surrounded and cradled in radiance, always in the stars. That's for this full moon that's coming. And in the process of the season, the journey of the raven is different from the journey of the crow, but the crow is our brother too. And when you hear the crow caw in the middle of January in the morning, admire that. Admire the joy of the hardiness of the crow in that austere, cold, frigid winter air. The hardiness of that. Night sky, journey of the raven. Studying the night sky, I find that starlight falls quite gently upon my face. It is not as if I had anything to hide. Though my hot mammal thoughts simmer endlessly, the stars do not mind. They are cool and remote, shining without passion or possession through the long cosmic miles. It is their distance that comforts me. Above the stirring and blood violence, they are serene. Their dispassionate light coolly lingers on my skin. I taste the cold immensity of distance and grow calm. Night sky, and in observation, there are speculations. We are conspiracies of parallel universes, entangled love-making proteins, filaments of blood brocade, quantum instruments for star perceptions, tsunami time waves, future memories merging with predictions of the past, surging, fiery electrical synapses web-jumping our galaxy-festooned brains, the collision of deviant occult winds and strange craze water. Speculations. Fuse and shine. When we collide with stars, we fuse and shine, woven in holy cosmic rapture, in simultaneous harmonic nuos, in harmonic simultaneous nows. I breathe in my ancestors and their enemies. I breathe in dinosaurs and sneeze. I inhale mountain ranges and sigh. I breathe in lovers and betrayers and the houses they all lived in, the blankets that covered their sleeping vulnerability, the baby teeth they lost and buried under the porch. Inhale, exhale, we are each other. My body is a composite, like variegated sand, made of the past and medium for future forms. Star particles look out at the horizon through my eyes, and death is reborn through my newly dividing cells. We own so little, really. Just share and receive the meal of our lives in existence's communal kitchen, full of delicacies and compost, just like our bodies, like our lifetime storylines. My teeth are made of ancient dynasties. My lingam is concocted from the water molecules of a river once rushing that carved the canyons. My brain contains particles from mythical beasts we retain no record of, and smells like lightning from the storms that excite and race across my synapses. Some of my memories are recorded in someone else's voice and refer to a previous face in the mirror. Some of my bones are love gifts from elders millennia past. Inside my veins travels gold dust that sifted down the mountainside back when their peaks were so much taller, when we were all so different, and yet even then we were all one and the same. I raise my drink and sip particles of the footed fish who made its way through the discomfort of evolution. And after swallowing momentarily, I ache with desire to grow into an environment that would seemingly kill me. Such is the first taste of all magnificent inclinations. I breathe in the dust of who came before, who never knew me, and yet we are one. Stardust, all there is. You are not alone. Mother and Father is here, streaming live to every receiver. Tune in. This is part of the mystery. Call it the goddess if you want. It's all good, because we are part of the infinite sun. You are the living goddess, and I bow to you. All the crickets chant Om, and the moon glows. Time lies down in the corpse pose, and the night bursts hundreds of billions of galaxies. You are the mystery without question or answer. And we are the inevitable explosion of awe. We are the inevitable explosion of awe. And we get stardust into our form. 300 sextillion 1, 300 sextillion 2. Oh, countless sky fires farther than eye can see. To the very edge of light, travel where far equals old, and it takes you eons to be seen. Here, where we orbit round your little sister Sunfire, we worship the deep mystery of your vast mother night. Nuit, Ratri, Nort, Paloti, Ishtar, Nix, Brexta, give us dreams of the long view peace. Asteria, divine for us, hope and healing. We are your dust, made of your sparkle. We forget here in this troubled world. Help us read your brilliant patterns. Connect our distant dots. Navigate the light ways of compassion. Bright star muses, bring us song, art, story. Ignite in us passion to create beyond our reach. Open the portals of imagination and flame us into revolutionary grace. I wish I may embrace your glow, cherish the unknown. I wish I might. I wish I might. We sparkle with stardust. The stardust palette colors near and far, in ancestral time, in molecular history, immense distance, intimate bonding, earth adoration. The very stars we see are actors in our consciousness. Constellations shape stories, ancient peoples named and mythologized stars. We use their clusters to study our self-definitions, play with our relationships. We send stars our prayerful wishes. When cosmology speaks of the unfathomable, we are told that every morsel of existence was flung into being with the original explosion. So what would that look like by now? I breathe in my ancestors and their enemies. I breathe in dinosaurs and sneeze. I inhale mountain ranges and sigh. Inhale, exhale. We are each other. Ancient, current, future matter are blended. Time wrinkles and waves, bends light, dances with space. And there is no geography that is not swimming in stardust soup. We are stardust, as above, so below. Yes, in that distant, long-dead star whose light we still see on our horizon, burns the same carbon, magnesium, iron, and phosphorus that make up our own blood and bones. These minerals are also rich in our plants. our herbs and our medicine. Let us replenish our minerals, connect with that distant stars. High in calcium calms our nerves with oat straw. Horsetail rich in silica is great for bones and joints. Hair and nails. Red clover tea is a cornucopia of minerals. Calcium, chromium, magnesium, phosphorus, and potassium. Red clover tea. Alfalfa is nutritious for its vitamins. Raspberry leaf tea is an excellent source of iron. Calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Nettles pack a wallop with iron and vitamin C, making it a great remedy for anemia. Dandelion, a diuretic with potassium, is excellent for cleansing and fortifying. Whole plants contain multiple constituents that complement and assist their healing properties. Willow bark, the powerful pain reliever that aspirin attempts to mimic, contains a gut healer that aspirin does not. You can't take this imposter for more than 3 days without risking damage to gastrointestinal lining. And our soil, after many years of chemical agricultural practices, we've stripped the stardust, the nutrients, out of the dirt. Grow your own, trade with neighbors, buy organic as much as you can. Did you know that potassium nitrate is present in morning dew? That's right. Potassium nitrate is present in morning dew. And so when you wake up in the morning in springtime and summer, go barefoot out into the morning grass and roll away the dew and receive your dew of potassium nitrate. That's right. Early European foremothers collected dew in the early spring and added it to their goat's milk to make cultured butter and yogurt. All the ferments. Isn't it stardust that inoculates your countertop sauerkraut? And entheogen is a plant that connects us with the divine. Cannabis, datura, amanita, peyote. Many cultures have used entheogens to connect with spirit realms, ancestors, the goddess. Maybe these plants have more stardust. It seems we're always trying to get back to divine connection. Yet all along, the divine elements of the stars are right here, all around us, in the plants, in ourselves, as above, so below. And in that stardust, you have the tower of the tarot, and then you have the star, which is the 17th tarot, and we are delighted. The star card opens to the vast comforts of a benevolent universe, the heart stirrings of personal and global healing, the astonishing possibilities of vibrant imagination. The stardust theme does not deny angst. Creative encounter with negative energy is still imperative. Life on Earth is truly imperiled by climate catastrophe and human violence, frightening gravities indeed. In our call for consciousness, we invite praise for the stars as the brilliant cosmic wonders blazing across space and time, all cultures, all dimensions, beacons of inspiration shining toward creative magic, expanded awareness, and visionary action. Artists and writers sent us their lustrous turns of the star prism. Reverence for the night sky goddesses radiates through the 13 moons. Mother Night, Rose Flint, writes prayerfully, the ancient mother of the cosmos breathes stardust into form, breathes the sparks that make new spheres, new stones and bones, new stories. We see her doing precisely that with the cosmic whispers of star breath, the air element illumined. And in that, we see the spider woman who was actually part of the belt of Orion with the Nazca lines and the Inca. Yes, we do. What does it mean to be made of cosmic shimmer? Whispers of vision tease us. Dreams light up our sleep. Oracles unveil the extraordinary. Star muses birth poems, songs, altars. Imagination turns the corner, glittering with surprise. Inexhaustible currents of healing radiate love and renewal. The power available to us as star people is given real-world engagement. As our writers and artists grapple with, as well, with dark matter, women rising up from the black hole of patriarchy are fixing things, dancing away violence, empowering each other in the face of oppression. And from the depths of personal disappointments comes nonetheless affirmation that discomfort is a growthful edge. The holes rent in my heart are merely windows with new ways to look out. Downside. Yes, our precious blue planet is on the downside of climate change. The North Pole is 50 degrees above normal, and sometimes cataclysmic storms of water, fire, wind swirl havoc on every continent. We do actively adore our home rock. To touch lichen growing on bark rings brings us to our knees. We care for Earth as best we can, live green, conserve blue, and in the long, long view, know that she too rides the cyclic waves of birth, life, death, renewal into mystery. The multidimensional universe will be Earth's grave as it was her cradle, and her particles will float into new beyonds. These cycles in her own biological rhythms take us from dust to dust. A mother celebrates her child, you come naked on the backs of the celestial storks. Through tumbleweed and Milky Way, star spray and mother's milk. A woman sings her now heaven-bound mother. A woman longs to revere her great-grandmother's bones, ashes to ashes. Return, return. She who weaves the night sky, unravels the warp, reinvents the woof. Let us invite us to know at the deep center of the star archetype there is calm. In classic star card imagery, a woman gives herself healing in sacred water, liquid stardust. Star Wars, no. The elixir of peace is the ultimate star gift. Meditation, quiet embrace of natural beauty, exquisite compassion for all beings, loving kindness, caring for the least of these. These are the constellations of our inner night sky, as limitless as the far reaches of time-space out there in immensity. In here, in the universe of the heart, on our intimate planet home, may the unconditional love force be with us. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, that is really who you are. The constellations of the inner night sky is exquisite compassion for all beings, as limitless as the reaches of time-space out there in immensity, in here in the universe of the heart. On our intimate planet home, may the unconditional love force be with us. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, that is really who you are. So that's a little visit of the night sky, which is really important. These are the winds of change. The ancient mother of the cosmos breathes stardust into form. Our midnight universe is strung with crystal stars. Snow-white mountains gleam on Pluto. Ice and rocks make moons for Jupiter. In far-off galaxies, she breathes disintegration. Branching nebulas fling ruby torches arcing over black iron falls to forest as meteors race across the sky. She breathes the sparks that make new spheres, new stumps, new bones, new stories. She breathes the mountain and the veiling cloud. She breathes the dancing crane and the tiger. She breathes the woman's song of birth, her Sundance song, both harsh and joyous. She breathes the death of old worlds, worn to whispers rattling in the throat. She breathes the winds of change that lift our soul to wings. She breathes the winds of change that lift our soul to wings, our minds alight. She has breathed us to this moment, to this purpose. We are here to call our goddess to this now, this world, being here now, this heart. Her breath is my breath, her breath is yours. With her celestial power within us, we can turn the world around. This affirmation of the mystery, and with a light to enlighten the darkness, we shall have a little bit of readings for meditation during the winter season, but at this moment we're going to travel within the within to a little pilgrimage we took within the last 6 days to a little out-of-the-way place no one's really ever heard of. That exists right here in the heart of the heartland, a little place called New Melleray Abbey near Peosta, Iowa, in far east central Iowa, just south of Dubuque and about 60, 70 miles northeast of Cedar Rapids. And this is a little thing that I wrote when I was up there, and it was a bit of mystery, so let the mystery be. And at the time, it was 10 below zero, and that particular day it broke out. We broke out of the below zero deep freeze, and we got what's called a Chinook wind. And the Chinook wind, it comes in every January after a deep freeze below zero for several days, and it warms up. It's a thaw that comes out of all places, the Northwest, and it's a thaw that warms the entire atmosphere as well as the soil and the trees and all biota, and it warms our spirit after a harsh ordeal. So this was coming out of a harsh ordeal of 15 days of below zero, and I went up with this merry band of merry married men from Marion to go to New Melleray for a fortnight or two within a day. And so I basically had this image of a Chinook wind, and these stones of New Melleray are ancient stones, hand-hewn and carved out of the limestone quarry and carried a half a mile by monks with hobnail boots, one by one. Took several years to build the foundation of New Melleray, hand by hand with blood, sweat, and tears. And the Chinook wind was breathing through the stones of New Melleray. And the process of osmosis is kind of the membrane. When stone turns to a membrane, when it becomes a skin, where air breathes through it. So you can feel the air, this warm Chinook air, literally breathing through the stone of New Melleray. So that's called osmosis, which is permeable. And actually it's a mystery how the stones of New Melleray are permeable. They breathe, living, breathing beings, animate. The stones speak there. So I call this Chinook osmosifying New Melleray. So I kind of created a word, osmosis, and then made it into a verb, an adverb, a gerund. Chinook osmosifying New Melleray means breathing through the stones of New Melleray. Well, what you got me here, who knows? Well, what got me here, who knows? Who knows? Many elements, many conditions, many people. Professors, priests, friends of condolence. For condolence is an underappreciated virtue, dear friend. Many days in waiting, sheerly alone in many corners of the Pacific Northwest, in many quiet sequesters at Koinonia Center in Eugene and other unknown secret holy places, awaiting when I least expect it, here in the mountains of God, and alignment occurs out of pure, sheer synchronicity. Nothing reaches the alaya of this place except in the pure frequency of surrender and surprise. Not to say this is easy, because it's not. For the weak, it's not for the weak, it's not for the feeble-hearted or the unsure-footed. You step out with your best foot and see where it will lead you. It is past dawn, toward mid-morning, say 10 a.m. or so. I came out of the basement cloister of Numellery after a light breakfast in the cafeteria of cereal grain and walnut bread with jam. I stopped in the southern outlying extended dining room to a room walled in with precious light. Floor to ceiling facing south over the snowy white rolling farm fields, and the light was warm, palpable, and enfolding in its outreach of life. And here stood pots, little, middle, and big, filled with charged particles of upstart life. And this was the South Pharmacy of the plant infirmary, so filled with the chlorophyll of belief and hope. Here in this nursery, beyond the infirmity of Babylon gone world, here in the ICU of baby plants germinated into sprouts. That's palpable. And here I came out of the basement cloister of Numellery after a light breakfast of cereal grain and walnut bread with jam. I stopped in the southern outlying extended dining rooms to a room walled in with precious light, floor to ceiling facing south over the snowy white rolling farm fields. And the light was warm, palpable, and enfolding in its outreach of life. And here stood pots, little, middle, and big, filled with the charged particles of upstart life. And this was the South Pharmacy of the plant infirmary, so filled with chlorophyll of belief and hope, here in this nursery beyond the infirmity of the Babylon gone world, here in the ICU of baby plants, germinated into sprouts. I went upstairs, and outside I stepped. Earlier this week, it was 4 below zero. Now I stood on the carefully quarried, lovingly hewn stone steps of Numellery. A fresh air of warmth enveloped my face as I slowly breathed air. This breathing at some level was a purification ceremony, washing my and everyone else's spirits clean. Ah, Chinook. Ah, Chinook. Ah, Chinook. After this grounding sensory field amplification of acclamation, a whisper of Anawim nudged me to go further. Step off I did, and slowly moved through the warmth on holy ground. This Sangreal of Numellery. Kindly bending to please the soft, gentle breeze, wafting through the trees, ancient trees, old growth trees of Numellery. Spirit beings were breathing through here. Ancestor brothers, ancestor elders, ancestor monks, ancestor abbots. You could feel the presence of their being through the trees. Grandparent elder trees, many generations old, and they had many more stories to tell than 7-story mountain. I stopped to breathe and honor the trees. Every 20 feet or so, as I was bathed and washed in the delight of baptism light of Numellery, and this concrescence wave of awareness grew as I slowly ambled up Numellery Rill, where I came to an interface of gravel roads leading out to a tin silo corn shed, a maintenance shed for small farm tractor equipment, and one leading to the cold water stream. I stood there for a long time, watching a small figure moving sturdily in a kinetic outline in the January snow. Soon this man was beside me, busily chugging along back to the Abbey. He briefly greeted "Good morning," and moved on. "My," I said, "these Trappist men are hardy, sturdy, and strong." I then ascended a stone staircase indented into the hill, much like indentured servitude of a voluntary kind. These are close encounters of the third eye loving kind. At the top of the stairs was a carved sculpture of Christ's crown of thorns. The face, the skull, the face of Christ in his crown of thorns. From the neck up, in a profile 3D, very appropriate. There was a wall that descended back down the hill to the monastery. The first part of the wall was a wooden open fence. The second part was a stone wall of enclosure, separating the outside world from the monk's interior. There was a parallel about 6 feet out, was a descending row of old-growth trees, about 150 feet high or so, each one. I slowly walked along the inviting natural path, stopping at each tree, putting my palm to its heart to greet it and admire its beauty, and the spiraling staircase to heaven. Those trees were saying prayers in my breath. Those trees were saying prayers in my breath as I breathed in their fresh pine cone air. Little by little, I began to realize this was my own Stations of the Cross. When I had finally slowly descended, I am slowly, freshly renewed into the stone-hewn monastery of the ancient breathing ancestors' breath. The large bells of the cloister of Numellery were heard ringing in a resonance frequency, heard for miles in rings of 3 by 3, 3 cubed, 9 bells altogether. It was heard for miles, a unified field resonance frequency of the universe. I stepped into the chapel of the great hall and began in chant with the monks in prayer at atonement. Ah, atonement. Ah, at one-ment. Aho. So this is the joy of the journey as a fractal of the joy in the morning. But I think it says a lot about following your wandering star. I had gone down and I had eaten breakfast. This beautiful, nice cafeteria. And we eat breakfast in silence, and normally they have some music or something. And we're alone in our silence, and that's by design. And I decided, I'll have some fresh, warm morning coffee, and Numellery has wonderful coffee if you love coffee. And I want to go out past, they have these outer dining rooms that are set apart where people can talk. And then beyond that, they also have another dining room that's sealed off and on the outer layer of them. So there's an inner, then there's a middle area of dining room, private dining room. You can go beyond that, and beyond that is an outer dining room where you can actually have like a solar atrium in the middle of winter with all the southern sun just warmed up with this. It has glass from the floor to the ceiling, so the entire area is just warm with this southern exposure of the sun. In January, it's the most precious space to be in, because anywhere where there's light, you get filled with energy and warmth. So I went out there, and wouldn't you believe, you see these plants here, all these plants right here? Well, the monk, some monk who loves botany, who loves growing plants, had started like 20 or 30 pots of different little growths. They had germinated the seeds, and now these seeds have broken the soil and have sprouted up. These are early spring saplings of different plants, and I just marvel at the number of these little plants reaching toward light and toward life. And it's just like literally in the middle of midwinter, discontent and despair somewhat because of the lack of light. These little plants are just filled with the chlorophyll of light and hope and faith in a way. So this monk was truly more than just sitting in the great hall and doing his daily vespers and known and compline and prayers. He was out there also engaging in dancing with life, dancing with these plants as a botany lover, a lover of plants. And so this effusion of effervescent light that just hit me. It was like every which way. It was not necessarily exhilarating. It was even deeper. It was just like getting a blood transfusion to chlorophyll, like a plant-person-planet interdependence connectivity. And the connectivity was just palpable, fabulously experiential. So it amplified my sensory field, and so that I wasn't expecting. So I had gone with, more toward, the inner life of, when you go into a monastery for retreat, you go for spiritual practice purposes that are spiritual in nature. I hadn't expected that this other form of spirituality through these green plants of joy, literally filling up the air. What a surprise and what a joy just to dance the light, dancing in the light there. And so I stood there for a little while and soaked all that up. And I decided, all right, so now I'll go outside and I'll just stand out here and feel the stones of Numelari. The sun was warm and that Chinook wind was warming up the stones. And I literally put my back against the stones like my vertebrae, my backbone was becoming connected with the backbone of the stones, and it was like a living tree, a tree of life, a tree of eternal life. And I was putting my backbones in a relationship with the backbone of the stones and being warmed, and also the viriditas going vertical. And I just had this fusion of immersion and transformation of my body, my little body, with this large stone edifice of Numelari. And I was like at one-ment there, where the stones in my backbones were all the same. We were all one. And you could feel the backbone of the stones, and I could feel my backbone with the stones of the backbone of the stones, and literally becoming one. It was a process called viriditas. It's Hildegard of Bingen talks about it eloquently, this mystic from, I believe, the 12th or 13th century. So we'll go through this again. The first time it goes in our heads, right? Second time it'll go in our hearts. So I've kind of explained my experience, so I'm going out into this unexpected wonder. Chinook osmosifying numelary. Well, what got me here, who knows? Many elements, many conditions, many people. Professors, priests, friends of condolence. For condolence is an underappreciated virtue, dear friend. Do a condolence ceremony. Many days in waiting, sheerly alone, in many corners of the Pacific Northwest, in many quiet sequesters at Koinonia Center, on Kincaid Street in Eugene, and other unknown secret holy places. Awaiting when I least expected it, here in the mountains of God, an alignment occurs. Out of pure, sheer synchronicity, nothing reaches the alaya of this place except in the pure frequency of surrender and surprise. Not to say this is easy, because it is not. For the weak, feeble-hearted, or unsure-footed, you step out with your best. You step out with your best foot, and you see where it will lead you. It is part dawn. Now it is past dawn, and it's going toward mid-morning, say like 10 a.m. or so. I came out of the basement cloister of numelary after a light breakfast of cereal, grain, and walnut bread with jam. Stopped in the southern outlying extended dining rooms to a room walled in with precious light from floor to ceiling facing south, over the snowy white rolling farm fields. And the light was warm, palpable and enfolding in its outreach of life. And here stood pots, little, middle, and big, filled with the charged particles of upstart life. And this was the South Pharmacy of the plant infirmary, so filled with chlorophyll of belief and hope, here in this nursery beyond the infirmity of the Babylon gone world, here in the ICU of baby plants germinated into sprouts. I went upstairs and outside I stepped. Earlier this week it was 4 below zero. Now I stood on the carefully quarried, lovingly hewn stone steps of numelary. A fresh air of warmth enveloped my face as I slowly breathed air. This breathing at some level was a purification ceremony, washing my and everyone else's spirits clean. Ah, Chinook. After this grounding, sensory field amplification of acclamation, a whisper of Anuim nudged me to go further. Step off I did and slowly moved through the warmth of the holy ground of Sangreal, kindly bending to please the soft, gentle breeze, wafting through the trees, ancient trees, old growth trees of numelary. Spirit beings were breathing through here, ancestor brothers, ancestor elders, ancestor monks, ancestor abbots. You could feel the presence of their being through the trees. Grandparent elder trees, many generations old, and they had many more stories to tell than the 7-story mountain. I stopped to breathe and honor the trees every 20 feet or so, as I was bathed and washed in the daylight of baptism light of numelary, and this concrescence wave of awareness grew as I slowly ambled up the numelary rill, where I came to an interface of gravel roads leading out to a tin silo corn shed. And as I returned to the monastery, the bells were ringing in the resonance frequency, a unified field resonance of the universe. I stepped into the chapel of the great hall and began a chant with the monks in prayer. Ah, atonement. Ah, at-one-ment. Aho. And may this be following your wandering star, dear friend. Follow your wandering star. It's really important to find out who you truly are. A spirit being of light. And may this light shine on this winter night for you and your loved ones and your kith and kin. Peace.